to call this, give you a second to get seated there. Call the regular meeting of the Board of Education to order at 7:05 p.m. Please call the roll.
Ms. Pearson?
Present.
Mr. Rollins?
Here.
Ms. McCall?
Here.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Here.
Mr. Siegel?
Here.
Ms. Haley?
Here.
Ms. Stanford?
Here.
With 7 present, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll now take a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we start each meeting, it bears reminding that the mission of the Rockford Public Schools is to collaboratively engage all students in a first-class education for a changing world. Before we go any further, I'm going to ask Connor Childers to step out from behind the wall. Can you hear me, Connor? Hey! Connor's been working behind the scenes on YouTube and our live casts and a lot of our videos for how many years?
5 years.
For 5 years, and he and his wife are moving out of state and to Michigan, and we will miss you, and we've appreciated all the work you've done for us, so thank you. All righty. Do we have a Superintendent Advisory Council present? Okay. Hopefully Jessica will be here for her comments at the next meeting. She ended up at a really long one last week. So we're now going to celebrate Rockford Public Schools. Ellis Elementary School is going to share how this year their school has undergone their changes. So do we have the Ellis? Yay! Did you turn the mic on?
Yep, we're
Thank
good.
you so much. And you'll introduce yourselves, right?
Yes.
Please, would you? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Schmelzer, and I'm the principal at Ellis Elementary School. I'd like to start by thanking the Board of Education for allowing us time to speak tonight and to share some of the exciting things happening at Ellis this year. I'm here with our instructional coach, Jessica Berg, and our assistant principal, Brian Lamb. We also have a few staff members, the amazing Ellis staff here in the audience, but I know many more are watching online tonight. Historically, our data at Ellis has shown minimal growth in student learning and achievement. This created a sense of urgency for us. We knew we needed to approach instruction differently this school year. We needed to make big shifts in how we delivered targeted small group instruction. This transformation started at the end of last year with a meeting at Welsh Elementary School with Blake Hand and Annie Pfeiffer. The outcome of that conversation started our journey into the science of reading. Jessica and I quickly involved staff through professional development opportunities over the summer. It very quickly became an all-in initiative between all teachers, general education, special education, and Title I. We started the year administering diagnostic assessments and foundational literacy. We also moved from a guided reading approach to a skills-based small group approach for instruction. This approach allowed us to meet our students where they are in their phonics skills progression, regardless of their current grade level. Without decoding, there is no comprehension. Students cannot comprehend what they cannot read.
This year we began assessing, wrong one. As a cohesive team, we've put together into place 3 small group systems that have shown tremendous gains by all of our students, kindergarten through 5th. Their confidence as readers has opened new doors that before seemed just out of reach. The smiling little girl that you see at the top of the slide had just read her first decodable text, and the pure pride and joy in her face is what we experience with our students every single day. This year, we began assessing students in 3 large categories: letter names and sounds, our ABC test, phonemic awareness, also known as the CUPA, and basic phonics skills, the BPST. These 3 areas make up the bottom strand of Scarborough's reading rope. Here you will see the results of these 3 assessments from fall to winter in 2 areas, kindergarten and 1st grade. These same assessments have been used kindergarten through 5th. We really wanted to highlight these 2 bottom grades just because of the foundational urgency in those 2. And you'll see there's a big difference between fall to winter data. And our students are over 50% mark in all areas for meeting grade level benchmarks in all 3 of those assessments. One piece of data that's been missing from our previously utilized level testing was the ability to test our students' spelling, also known as their ability to encode. We quickly learned that a student did not show mastery of a skill until they were able to spell it on their own. Pictured, you'll see at every grade level students moving out of the red from fall to winter based on the newly administered direct spelling assessment, or also called the DSA. This momentum of growth is currently spilling over into spring. So we want to see that red get smaller, and we're taking chunks out of it. We're currently in our 2nd year of teaching Reading Horizons a little differently than any other RPS school. At the same time, every day, kindergarten through 4th grade, teachers teach Reading Horizons to over 350 students that move to 18 differentiated groups. We have not only classroom teachers, but Title I and ESL, all teaching groups that are differentiated to their specific abilities. We're not only able to meet our lowest readers, but we're able to enrich our highest readers. So the kids who no longer need Reading Horizons, we have literature study rooms that they're actually diving into novels. And that has been just the goal for our kids to really want to reach that higher area. So it's really become an area of want for our kids. With the transition from the science of reading to small groups, we've been able to truly see the transfer component of Reading Horizons take root. They are able to apply newly learned skills with more confidence and ease due to repeated exposure and practice. And please enjoy this video compilation of our journey so far.
Okay, ready? Pop the first sound.
So what we're doing this year is really cool, and I think one of my biggest frustrations is just reflecting back on the last 9 years of my teaching and feeling like we've never been properly trained how to teach these kids how to read. And so this year, having these skills, having these strategies, being able to teach kids at the skill level that they're actually at, and feeling like we're doing our job this year. These kids are grasping this information. We're seeing the progress that these kids are making, and it's just really exciting.
Now what's that first sound?
If you don't know how to read, you can just try to read it. Like, sound
This year when we implemented science of reading, my confidence as a teacher has grown significantly, and we're continuing to grow. It's just making such a significant difference in our scores, in their confidence, and in my confidence as a teacher.
It gave him the encouragement to do it. He was just excited, so excited. It made me excited. It made him want to work with me more, and it just opened up new doors for him. And you can see it in his face. Now he's ready to learn. Before, every day it was a struggle to get him to come into school.
What letters is X?
I feel good, happy, amazing, proud.
Yeah, you should feel proud because you guys have been working really hard and I'm really proud of you.
Any questions?
Can't wait to see your IAR scores.
We
feel the same.
Such a predictor. Oh, and
we just
exciting.
excited to keep this momentum going and this change just continuing to grow in 6 months. We've seen a lot already, so.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
We're now at the petitions and communication portion of our meeting when we invite the public to make comments. The board will not respond to comments at this time. If it's appropriate, you'll be contacted in a timely manner by staff. Each speaker will be allowed no more than 2 minutes to address the board. It's not appropriate to address individual board members or individual administrators or to discuss matters that would otherwise be confidential in such open meetings. 2 names will be called at one time. If you look to your left, the first will speak and the second will be on deck. If you look to your left, there you'll see 2 digital clocks. One shows the total time allotted to public comment and one shows the total time for each speaker. We thank you for your interest. We thank you for your cooperation with our guidelines. First speaker is Nicole Brown, followed by Ricky Naylor. Oh, I think they turned the mic off. Could you please turn it back on and restart her clock? Thank you.
Okay. Start now?
Yeah, you betcha.
Hi, my name is Nicole Brown. I have a student at Auburn High School that is a sophomore. We recently encountered last week a bullying situation. My daughter had been being bullied by a student, a senior in high school. She's a sophomore. The student kept approaching my daughter, trying to fight her. My daughter kept walking away. She's went to help. She's asked for teachers. She's made 6 reports on this student harassing her. An encounter occurred in a hallway on Thursday where the said student was throwing cookies at my daughter. My daughter did not respond according to staff. She has not responded to any of her attempts of trying to fight her. She's gone for help for every time. Where another student, Nala Taylor, stepped in and was like, look, leave Olivia alone. Stop bullying her, stop throwing stuff at her. This student now encounters Nala Taylor, tries to get an altercation with her. Instantly, Olivia steps in, we're better than this, we have stuff to lose, let's walk away, we're not gonna get into a fight. Olivia and Nala were fiercely punished for this altercation in the hallway because it made a disruption in the hallway. If the situation would have been addressed at the beginning, it would have never came to that point. The system for the bullying is set up for the bully. Your bullies have to work their way up to punishment. When a victim is punished, it's instantly. When she's fed up, when she can't take no more. How much more is a student supposed to take if they're constantly going to help and then instead another student has to step in to try to eliminate the situation? And on top of it, I catch their principal trying to cover up the situations that happen and said that my daughter was part of the problem. When I personally spoke to her teacher that she was in and said my daughter was not part of the problem. She did everything she could. Nobody wanted to talk to me at Auburn. It's been a week of total chaos.
I'm really sorry. Your time is up, but somebody will be in touch with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ricky Naylor, followed by Angel Brown.
Okay, just a quick question here. How many of you guys here believe in God? Any of you board members, administrators? Well, anyway, I'm going to give God, I told God I would come down and give him some of my time. So what he's warning you guys about is, you know, when it comes to these students of color, he's warning you guys, you got to start treating these kids better. And so far, you haven't been doing. The statistics keep showing over and over that you're not doing that. So even the ones that's here, the black administrators, the black board members that's sitting back here watching these kids being mistreated by these white staff, you're going to be under that same judgment because you didn't do anything about it. So let's keep that in mind. Now, another thing is, I'm sure your legal department has probably told some of your board members that we filed a complaint against you guys because you cannot tell people we can't direct comments these administrators. You can't do that. You ever heard of First Amendment? The only way you can stop us from doing stuff in here is if we cause disruption. If I'm questioning one of your administrators, how am I causing disruption? Because the public need to know what you guys are down here doing and hold you accountable. If these guys can't take criticism, they need to resign. Like you said, because we know what you guys are doing now. What you guys are doing is these administrators are preparing for their retirement, but at the same time, they're preparing these black students to fail. I mean, come on, guys. 53%. And other black students across this country is at least 76%. That big gap cannot be explained by these black students in this town here are slow learners. So something else is going on, and we need to figure that out before it's too late. So keep that in mind.
Thank you. Angel Brown, followed by Matthew Simpson.
Hello, everyone. I'm here today because my son, he goes to a Haskell STEM school, and he had missed 21 days of school because he had caught an upper respiratory infection in September, and he's been fighting an upper respiratory infection since September, and it done turned into bronchitis. So I had called down here to talk to the superintendent about my situation, and whomever answered the phone took my name and my number, and I know the principal from Haskell, she called me, and she was very upset, and she was very intimidating, asking me that I call downtown. I did tell her because my son keep getting sick, and she just asked me, how did I know? And I said he been getting sick since September. And I showed y'all the paperwork. And I had went to his meeting last week, and I happened to look up at the vent like this in the classroom, and it was so filled with dust. And I feel like the upper respiratory went to bronchitis because he been breathing in dirty air because it was so dirty, it looked like it haven't been cleaned for like almost a year. So my son just went back to school February the 7th. I contacted the teacher and asked her could he stay inside because the weather been funny. It's been raining, it's been snowing, and the nurse called me and told me that it's state law that I have to have a letter for him to stay in school. So I contacted his doctor. They sent him the letter, sent the school the letter, and they still let my son go outside. They said that they forgot. And I was very upset. How could you forget? What if he needed to take some medicine and anything you would have forgot? And I just feel like my son he's behind, and I had to have a meeting with the principal yesterday, and the meeting didn't go well because I shouldn't be sitting in a room. You telling me because my son is behind in the state law, you got to tell me about these different seats, which I understand, but I understand if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. But my son is the future, other kids is the future also. So I wish when y'all board members go into these schools, because y'all look at the system, I feel like you shouldn't have to you shouldn't tell them that you're going into the school. They should be prepared for what they already ready for. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew Simpson, followed by Nayla Taylor.
I'll be reading an email I sent to the principal at McIntosh Elementary School. Good morning. I am emailing now to share my knowledge of an incident that took place at McIntosh yesterday, February 7th, where our daughter River Simpson's safety was compromised. She was physically struck and hit by a student during music class. I'm disappointed and frustrated to be sending another such email on this subject. When I picked her daughter up yesterday, she told me that the student hit her during music class. Luckily, I saw the music teacher walking away from the bus headed back to school. Otherwise, I may not have heard anything about this from the school. I called across the parking lot to the teacher and said, River said that the student hit her in music class. The teacher told me that the student is special needs and didn't have his para working that day. The student is often triggered and behaves this way regularly. River did not do anything to warrant being struck and hit. It seems that there was not adequate support for the student, which created a potentially dangerous environment. As a result, our daughter was unnecessarily hurt. As I have mentioned in previous emails, incidents like this make me question the culture and leadership at the school building. My questions are, I would like to know what are the steps that's supposed to be taken to prevent, in the event that a paraprofessional is not present, to ensure all students are supported and protected, and why were these steps not taken during the incident on February 7th when my daughter was struck? As you know, this is our third email to you after an incident where our daughter's safety was compromised at McIntosh. We have sent 3 emails, but River has shared more than 3 incidents that have concerned us. We have tried to coach River in ways to protect herself and be safe. But these repeated incidents are very disturbing. I feel it necessary to send emails and acknowledge the incidents because this does not strike me as a normal and acceptable education experience. Again, I'm emailing to let you know we are aware of the incident. Our goal is to be positive and supportive partners with the teachers and the leaders at McIntosh, but it's becoming more difficult to do this when our daughter is repeatedly harmed at school.
Thank you. Your time is up. Nayla Taylor, followed by Ann Rundle.
My name is Nala Taylor, and I would have been okay with the 1 day of in-school suspension for the disturbance, but a level 3 days out of school, a safety threat, social exclusion, loss of privileges, and not to mention, I have 0 referrals, I'm a student athlete, and I'm also a student ambassador. If you ask any teacher I have, they will say themselves that this punishment was excessive. Not only I was failed, but 2 other peers was failed by the administration at Auburn High School. On my way to get my basketball shoes for my mom, I noticed an event between a teammate and another student. Student was throwing cookies at my teammate, and I stepped in, and the student told the student not to throw cookies. As we were walking away, student tried to attack me, whereas other teammates came and intervened to stop the situation. After that, my parents and I met with Mr. Paddock, Mr. Pemberton, and a few days after writing my 24-hour notarized letter for Ms. Keffer, we finally got to meet with her. Throughout this whole process, only Mr. Paddock had the same story each time we met with them. Mr. Pemberton had 3 different stories each time. In the midst of it all, every student who was willing to write a statement about what happened was denied by Mr. Pemberton as well as the secretary. After our meeting with Ms. Keffer, she called my mom and said that she was not able to remove the social exclusion, and one of the entails that were said were graduation, meaning that I couldn't walk the stage at graduation. My mom then asked for it to be removed because where in the student conduct was the social exclusion exist. Ms. Keffer then stated she'll consider taking it off closer to graduation based on my behavior. This whole situation was handled with a lot of miscommunication, misinformation, and confusion. If there's a no tolerance policy for bullying, why wasn't this taken serious by the staff of Auburn High School?
Thank you, Nala. Ann Rundle, followed by John Brantley.
My name is Ann Rundle, and I'm here representing Eliminate Racism 815. We would like to thank Jennifer Lawrence and her team for developing the new student code of conduct for this year that is much more supportive of students and less punitive. If the less punitive student code of conduct is to be a success, however, we have a few suggestions that we think might be helpful. One, there has to be consistent interventions. They must be in place to help the students address the reasons why they have behavior issues. Our question is, what is the system of interventions, and how are the interventions being supported with the necessary resources, and who is responsible to see that those interventions are being implemented? Our second suggestion is about professional development. It must be happening in all all of the schools if the new code is to be successful. It doesn't work to change the rules if the people who have to implement the new rules are still thinking and acting as they did under the old paradigm. So who is responsible to develop a comprehensive professional development plan related to the student code of conduct? Number 3, there are some students who constantly have behavior issues and may need a therapeutic classroom, which is a small classroom where students are able to get the attention they need to address their trauma issues and could eventually be assigned back then to their larger classroom. If a teacher is constantly spending too much time dealing with one or more students in the classroom for behavior issues, the learning of all the other students is interrupted. Even the best teacher in the district cannot do their job when they're constantly being having to address behavior issues.
Thank you, Ann. Yes. Our last speaker is John Brantley.
Good evening, board members. And first of all, I want to say, glad to see you back, Dr. Reed. I asked the board members to pray for you when you had that accident, even though they didn't, but we still pray for you at church. But I'm glad to see you back. I want to mention that when my van went down, the community came through. I needed to raise $1,600 to get my van fixed. And when I didn't have my van, the radio did an interview, and I sent out the article that the radio did an excellent job of the interview to help me raise some funds. So we do have a GoFundMe. One of my concerns is, and I'm listening to the parents here, is that the 35 kids I take to school, once again, I'm listening to Ellis School. I see a problem with that. Our kids cannot read. I got a kid that's 10, 11 years old. They can't read. They get upset. I got a lot of kids that don't even want to learn their own history. We plan on going to the Underground Railroad. This will be our 10th year going to the Underground Railroad. A lot of kids have never been to the Underground Railroad. I want to thank Earl Dodson Jr. for being able to provide transportation for our kids to be able to go to educational activity. What I'm blown away is that middle school, high school get credit and get excused absence for going on educational trips, but the elementary kids don't. Them the ones should be the ones getting credit for the school grade, because our kids go back and they talk about all the educational activities we take our kids on, but yet you're going to mark them absent. I go way out of my way to provide transportation to get our kids to school. The school, I'm looking for the school board and the school system to go out their way, where our kids in elementary school should get a credit towards their school grade. If the school can provide us with a school bus, and when you have a shortage of school bus drivers, and we going to Milton, Wisconsin, they should get credit towards their school grade, because they're going back telling the other kids. The other kids have came up to me and want to join the Renewal Turning Point program and want to be a part of the Renewal Turning Point program. I'm also blown away that the bulk of the kids I work with do not want to learn their black history, but yet they cover up by acting out in school where they make it hard for the teachers to teach the class.
John, your time is up.
My time up? Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope to hear about your trip after you guys get back.
All right, I'll be back.
All right. I think that is our last speaker, so we'll move on to the business portion of our meeting. We're now on to the consent portion of our meeting, which includes items previewed by the Board of Committee chairs during the Committee of the Whole meeting. Consent agenda includes for performance and monitoring the payroll, accounts payable, purchase orders, air travel, monthly cash and investment report from December of 2022, the financial results from December of 2022, the construction pay request log, the RFP 2310 audit services, the IFB 2338 field house lights, the Peridot Consulting Agreement, the recurring contract with Math Learning Center, community project at Cherry Valley Elementary School, and the donation from Our Savior's Lutheran Church of the outside classroom at Johnson Elementary School. The consent items from Planning Committee includes Northwest Quadrant Elementary School attendance boundary realignment. And from Governments Committee, the meeting minutes from 1/24/23, the contract purchase orders, new teacher hiring incentives, and the Freedom of Information law. Are there a motion and a second to approve the consent items?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any consent items board members wish to have pulled for separate consideration? Ms. Pearson.
5. Oh, one moment. I scroll past, one moment. The item regarding boundaries, so that's 5A.
That is 5A.
Yes, 5A. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have any other items that they wish to have pulled? Seeing none, I ask the coordinator to call the roll on the consent items with the exception of 5A.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Ms. Haley?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. I'll take a motion in a second for the Northwest Quadrant Elementary School attendance boundary realignment.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Discussion, questions? Ms. Pearson?
Yeah, so I pulled this just for discussion, a couple of things, and I've already forestated my concern in regards to the information regarding the boundary change after we voted on the International Baccalaureate program. I am not in opposition of the program, but I just want to make sure that it is understood that information that will later possibly affect the previous decision, the information is given in order, per se. Secondly, given what I just heard, of course, as always, and I understand that there should be a specific capacity at each school. My concern with the possibility with the boundary change is the increased number of students that will come to McIntosh and what that will look like, and if we will be capable of servicing those students. And I just wanted to express my concern regarding that item. Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, coordinator, please call the roll.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Ms. Haley?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We're now at the closed session consent agenda. This includes the appointment of Matthew Zimmerman as a 10-month early childhood assistant principal assigned to Summerdale, appointment of Mitchell Lupke as a 12-month director of transportation assigned to the transportation building, the HR organizational report and addendum, and the following student discipline. 32X, the expulsion is held in abeyance contingent upon expulsion and abeyance agreement for the remainder of the 22-23 school year through the entire 23-24 school year. 47X is expelled for the remainder of the 22-23 school year through the entire 23-24 school year. 48X is expelled for the remainder of the 22-23 school year through the entire 23-24 school year. 51X, the expulsion is held in abeyance contingent upon an expulsion and abeyance agreement for the remainder of the 22-23 school year through the entire 23-24 school year. 52X, the expulsion is held in abeyance contingent upon an expulsion and abeyance agreement for the remainder of the 22-23 school year through the entire 23-24 school year. It also includes the following student discipline, which are all EIAs: B0010, D0007, D0008, D0009, D0010, H0046, H0049, H0050, P0050, H0053, P0097, P0098, P0099, P0101, P0102, P0103, P0104, P0105, P0106, T0008, T0009. I'll entertain a motion in a second to approve the closed session consent items.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Are there any closed session consent items board members wish to have pulled? Ms. Pearson.
47X.
47. So B, 8B.
Correct. Thank you.
Sure. David? Are there any others board members wish to have pulled? Okay, seeing no lights, I'll ask the coordinator to call the roll on all except for 8B for the closed session agenda.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Ms. Haley?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
I'll take a motion in a second for 8B0047X.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Closed session, there'll be no discussion. The coordinator, please call the roll.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Ms. Haley?
No.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
No.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
The motion passes with 5 yeses, 2 noes.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is Superintendent's Report. Dr. Jarrett?
Before I dive in, I do want to acknowledge that our student representative, Jessica, is here this evening, and she put in a great deal of time at our Committee of the Whole meeting and is here to listen today. And as is our practice, she will be sharing her thoughts and experiences as they connect to what she's learning from. So I want to thank Jessica for being here. And she is serving as our Vice President of our SSAC and actually will be leading our meeting on Thursday. So thank you for all you're doing to represent our students. She also has the distinct honor of serving as on a statewide student representative committee as well. So we're all really proud of her work and looking forward to what you have to say at our next meeting. Thanks for being here. And I did want to introduce the 4 concepts from our superintendent's, and this was shared in our superintendent's update, but we have a concept called academic return on investment. And what that does is it takes a business term where you measure whether something is giving you a return on your money, and instead of talking about a return on investment for cost exclusively, this is really about taking what a program costs and determining, is it giving an investment in student learning? So this is a chance for us to evaluate existing programs. And we had 2 of those existing programs that we evaluated over the last 2 years. One was our Reading Horizons program, and the other was our Freshman Academy. In both cases, we studied those programs rigorously. We broke them up into how they were impacting multiple groups of students, and we made some recommended changes based on what we learned. And in both cases, we've seen improved student outcomes. So our return on investment for Reading Horizons has been increased literacy levels, particularly our early literacy gains that we shared recently with our MAP scores. You can see some of that embedded in Ellis's presentation tonight, who I thought just did a wonderful job. Freshman Academy, you can see some of the return on investment being improved freshman on track rates. And not only were those rates improving overall, but the segment of student we were most concerned with that was furthest from the goal, our African American students, gained the most from some of our improved practices there. In both cases, we have a lot of work to do still, but it's an example of focusing on something at the board level and studying it can lead to improvement. So that brings us to tonight's meeting. In the update, I shared 4 different possibilities for the board. I would like over the next 2 meetings for the board to give me a recommendation of 1 to 2 to place the board's emphasis on. We will be moving Reading Horizons and Freshman Academy into those fix-it plans are in place, and we'll certainly continue to care about how those programs are going and evaluate them, but we want 2 new programs to move into the spotlight. So one recommendation is integrated math. This is one of our high school standards of practice. Another option is our middle school focus skills. These are skills that we believe that can improve literacy, as well as the performance on the state test, as well as critical thinking skills for our students, writing skills, lots of really powerful carryover for our middle school students. College and career academies, we are over a decade into our work with organizing our students according academies. We have an opportunity to do some intensive analysis for the return on investment we're getting for that approach for our high school students. And then finally, at the upper elementary level, we have a program that builds on Reading Horizons called Reading Horizons Elevate. We certainly have not addressed all of our literacy deficiencies in our district, and this gives us an opportunity to study the ability to catch up for 4th and 5th graders, and potentially even use some balanced literacy and phonics-based instruction in 4th and 5th grade, and potentially expand some of those to supplement our middle school and high school literacy intervention programming. So those are the 4. The board agenda item gives some additional detail, but today I just wanted to introduce these topics and get a sense of where the board is with these 4 topics, or if we're off the mark, if there is another program. The reason we've highlighted these 4, though, is they are existing programs. We don't want to build a new program and then measure it. And 2, we want it to be one program, not a group of programs. It becomes difficult to measure the impact at this level of a bundle of programs. So if we pick a larger topic and determine what fixes or changes we need to make sure it gets better results for students, or ultimately what we have to be open to is if these programs aren't the right programs, we may go in a different direction. That's certainly an option as well. So we can keep them, we can fix them, or in an extreme case, we may actually have to walk away and go a different direction if something is truly not providing a return on our financial investment with student learning. So with that, I would love to get any preliminary feedback from the board with the hope of making a decision by our next board meeting.
June.
Well, the one that jumps off the page to me is integrated math. My son struggled with this class, and I know that it's a high failure rate for our high school students, and that leads me to believe that something's not working right with it. So that would be my number 1 choice.
Ms. Pearson?
I too have received feedback from community members regarding the integrated math, and every parent that I spoke with, it's been a common theme, and it's difficult to even get help for their kids with it. Thank you.
Mr. Rollins?
Yeah, I mean, integrated math was going to be my number 2, but I'm just reacting to, I know that we were told in a presentation a couple of years ago that one of our largest barriers to having freshmen on track and getting kids to graduate is passing math. So I think that probably needs to be a focus. My number 1 was still going to be Reading Horizons Elevate, just because we know we've got a literacy problem, and if kids can't read by the time they get out of elementary school, then they're not going to pass anything. So I'd still focus on Reading Horizons, but if we do 2, I'd like to do both integrated math and a Reading Horizons.
David?
Yeah, I'd like to take this opportunity to actually agree with Mr. Rollins. That was definitely my 1 and 2. And for really the same reasons, the way we did freshmen on track, and that key metric was that would indicate a student was on track was that they would be able to pass that math class freshman year was the greatest indicator of their likelihood to graduate. So anything we can do to continue to bolster that success track, I'm definitely for it. But definitely definitely the Reading Horizons Elevate. We need to keep banging the literacy. It's and fourth and fifth grade. It just seems to be this gap. We put all this emphasis on getting our third graders to read. We created a middle school on track, and having something that will draw more attention to that fourth and fifth grade, I think, is definitely going to be very important. Thank you.
Ms. Haley?
Yes, my focus would be, again, 1 and 2 for me. The first one would be the integrated math. Second is the Reading Horizons. The integrated math for me is because we are so dismal in our numbers as far as math achievement. And I think that's very important, not only to be up to speed when we are graduating students, but also for students being ready for college.
Johnny, do you want to chime in, Ms. McCall?
Yes. I would like to, my number 1 will be the integrative math. However, my number 2 would be the college and career academics. There's been a lot of changes towards these career academies, and I would like to get a deeper dive and to see if all of the things that were changed to drive students into different college paths, how successful that is, and also taking advantage of the, early college and credit program as well as dual credit program. So.
Yeah. I'm really interested in the college and career. The problem is I agree that the reading piece, although Reading Horizons was never actually meant for our upper level grades. This was a program that was for, kindergarten, first and second, and now we're looking at students who need it in fourth and fifth because pandemic and for whatever reasons did not succeed in those younger grades. So I think it's interesting, one of the ones that jumped at me was middle school, because we are working on track and those students being, and all the concerns we've heard about focus skills assessments from the educators and our teachers. That was actually one of my 1, too. So, but I'm perfectly fine going with integrated math and Reading Horizons because I'm hearing a consensus kind of on that. We can have further conversation, take this back, think about it. Maybe if you have some strong reasonings, it's really great to reach out to another board member between now and the next meeting and have a conversation. That's how this works. It's not a lot of opportunity here, but maybe you have an argument that you'd like to present and talk through. So. Otherwise, I take it are we actually voting or consensusing?
I'm just looking for advice. So there will be a couple things I want to follow up on. One, what I think we would be able to do is come back. We don't currently have our director of accountability in place yet, but Mr. Zedeker, would we be able to bring maybe at least some ideas of what a design would look like in February, or I don't want to overpromise when we don't have that position filled yet?
I would say that from an integrated math perspective, the team has already been working a little bit with some new members of the team, so we had to create a study. So we used that topic to create some framework so that we certainly could show newer board members kind of what that looks like. It would resemble, some of the studies that we've done with Reading Horizons and Freshman Academy in terms of defining the criteria for success and the segment data that we take a look at. So those types of things would stay consistent, but I think we'd be able to provide the board with at least a draft out framework of what it might look like from an integrated math perspective.
So at least provide an example for integrated math. And then the second thing I can share with the board is even the ones that came in third and fourth place, those will still be covered multiple times a year in a board update. We will still be studying them. They just won't be studied as intensively as the 2 you prioritize. So to be clear, high school academies and middle school focus skills, which both did generate some significant interest as well from the board, we will still be studying and covering those. we will talk a little bit more about the difference between what we call a tier 3 study, which is what you're picking. We only get to do 2 of those at one time, and then there are not to be more than 20 tier 2 studies, including the 2 for tier 3. So we will still spend some time, just probably through my superintendent board update, talking about how we're doing on middle school focus skills and college and career. So the good news is there are no true 3rd and 4th place finishers. They will still be covered, and we will still be studying those. But I think it was clear, Mrs. McCulloch, that there was consensus that the board would like us to further explore integrated math and also our Reading Horizons Elevate, and we will give you some ideas of what that looks like. But I also would encourage the board to reach out with questions or to each other. If there's a change of heart, we still have time to do that prior to the February 28th meeting. So thank you for your advice tonight. I really appreciate it.
All right. As we mark that, David, on our calendar for... You still have a couple more opportunities. Next, we move to board member comments. Do any of the board members have comments? Ms. McCall.
I just want to comment and commend the community members that came out and spoke to us, advocating on the behalf of your students and sometimes on the behalf of themselves. I was very happy to see a young student come in and let us know what is needed on her behalf. So I just want to just publicly say I encourage that, and I want everyone to encourage their students to learn how to advocate for themselves as well. Thank you.
Any other comments? Ms. Pearson.
Yes, thank you. So since the start of my experience as being a board member, I've always encouraged community members and students to use the proper chain of command. And that is to utilize the school first. And if there is no resolve, to reach out to your representative who communicates then with the downtown district. So what is disappointing is this. We have expectations of our students. We expect them to attend school, to be respectful, and to not be confrontational, and we have a list of rules for them, as we should. We should have an expectation of our students. The adults should then be role models and be respectful. And this is the reason I ask so many questions in regards to what is documented in our discipline packets. And this, what I heard on this evening is not an isolated incident. I don't believe. I believe it has happened more than once, and someone took the courage to speak up. So it is important that we pay attention to what our parents and our students are reporting, and the communication, and I've mentioned this before where it relates to customer service. When there is a communication sent, the expectation is you respond to that communication. We are asking for community engagement, and our community need to know that when they reach out, we respond, and that's just common courtesy. And we look to, again, the adults to be role models. And when terminology is used associated with suspension that would typically be seen in an expulsion and or EIA, it becomes very confusing. And that is the reason why I question if parents really understand the EIA and the expulsion. So let this be a strong message to us that we must continue to put our students first while we work with school administrators and teachers to make sure that we're getting what our students are getting what they need and have that support from us. Thank you.
Any other board members? I have two comments, one of which is I wanted to let you all know that Mr. Brantley's been up here, and I did receive an email. Finally, they have a GoFundMe account. It's called Faith Funding 815, if anybody wants to contribute to the opportunity for him to have his continue his work with our students, getting them to and from school. That is not that is not district sanctioned. That is just me as a board member saying that I was supporting it, and I'm sharing that opportunity with my other board members and anybody listening. My other one was we now move on to the next phase with our code of conduct, where we are going to community meetings, and I want to make sure people are aware those meetings. One is tomorrow night, and the other one is next Tuesday, and we do not have a board meeting next Tuesday, so let's see, who knows where they're at and what time, please? I know next Tuesdays I have in my calendar. I could look that up, but somebody should have that.
Jefferson tomorrow from 6 to 7 p.m. and East from 6 to 7 p.m. next Tuesday. And important to note that we'll have translators and interpreters available at the East meeting next Tuesday.
Thank you. And can you just give us an overview so that and kind of like draw board members in and the like, what is it that we would expect? I know what we had last year with everything posted and an opportunity to comment, but what is it we're going to see?
You'll be brought into the process year to date, everything that we've done so far to gather feedback, the result of that feedback process, and then community members will have an opportunity to ask questions of the administration in small groups and to examine the changes and provide their feedback. That will be in English at Jefferson tomorrow, and then we move at a slightly different pace when we have our interpreters and translators, and we organize people by language so that they have the opportunity to interact with administrators in their native language.
And that will be at both times you'll have the interpreters? Or
no,
just
only at East next Tuesday.
Just confirming. Ms. McCall.
Just a follow-up question to that. I know last year as a community member, I participated in these listening sessions and things. However, there was no feedback or anything after that. Like if I didn't have a student inside the district, how would I have known what changes were made? So I just want to make sure that we keep in mind for the people that participate in there, have some type of way of letting them know that their feedback was heard and it was interpreted or whatever, or how they can figure out the next steps from that. Thank you.
Great suggestion. All right, I see no other lights. Does anybody have any other agenda recommendations moving forward? Seeing none, I'll take a motion in a second to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. We are adjourned at 8:03 p.m. Oh, that's right. Happy Valentine's Day.